A lot of homeowners think once PEX is installed, it's basically set and forget for life. That is not always true, and the failures I have seen can be devastating. Reasons your PEX plumbing could fail within 5 years and exactly how to prevent each one. Number 5 involves a threat most people never see coming, and the bonus tip at the end could save you thousands. The first reason your PEX plumbing can fail is UV and sunlight exposure. Now, this one catches a lot of people off guard because PEX looks tough. It feels durable. You would never guess that something as simple as that breaks down when exposed to ultraviolet light. We are not talking about years and years of exposure either. Even 30 days of direct sunlight can start to weaken the material depending on the intensity. What happens is the UV rays attack the chlorine bonds inside the polymer chains of the tubing. Over time, the pipe becomes brittle. It loses its flexibility. And once that flexibility is gone, it becomes prone to cracking, pinhole leaks, and in some cases, full ruptures under normal water pressure. I have personally seen PEX lines that were run through an attic with a small skylight nearby. The homeowner had no idea that little bit of light filtering in was slowly cooking the pipe. Maybe you ran new lines to a bathroom addition and left the tubing visible while you finished the drywall weeks or months later. That is more than enough time for damage to begin. Prevention is straightforward. Always store your PEX tubing in its original packaging or in a dark area before installation. Once installed, make sure every inch of exposed PEX is covered. If it runs through an area with any natural light, even indirect light, wrap it with UV protective tape or run it inside a protective sleeve. Some manufacturers sell PEX with a UV stabilized outer layer, but even those have limits, usually around 60 to 90 days of exposure. The safest rule of thumb is to treat PEX like it has zero tolerance for sunlight. Cover it, shield it, and get it behind walls or inside conduit as quickly as possible. That one habit alone could add decades to your system's life. The second reason PEX plumbing systems fail early is improper fitting connections. This is probably the most common installation mistake I see, and it is responsible for more emergency calls than almost anything else in residential plumbing. PEX uses a few different connection methods. You have got crimp rings, clamp rings, and expansion fittings, and each one requires a specific tool and a specific technique. The problem starts when homeowners or even some handymen mix and match components that were never designed to work together. For example, PEX-A, PEX-B, and PEX-C are not all the same material. PEX-A uses an expansion fitting system. PEX-B typically uses crimp rings. If you grab a bag of crimp rings and try to use them on PEX-A tubing with expansion fittings, you are setting yourself up for a slow leak that might not show itself for months. And when it does show up, it usually appears inside a wall or under a floor where the damage can grow before you ever notice it. Another common issue is improper calibration of the crimp tool itself. Most crimp tools need to be checked with a go, no-go gauge before every use. That gauge confirms the tool is compressing the ring to the correct diameter. If the crimp is too loose, the connection will leak. If it is too tight, you risk cracking the fitting or deforming the ring, which also leads for that type. Do not improvise. Third, test your crimp tool with a go, no-go gauge every single time you start a project. These gauges cost only a few dollars, and they take clean square edge. A jagged or angled cut will not seat properly inside the fitting, and that tiny gap is where leaks begin. The third reason your PEX plumbing could fail within just a few years is chemical degradation from chlorine and water quality. This one is a silent killer because you cannot see it, smell it, or feel it happening. Municipal water systems across the country use chlorine and chloramines to disinfect drinking water. That is a good thing for public health, but it is not always a good thing for your PEX tubing. Over time, these chemicals interact with the inner wall of the pipe and gradually break down the material from the inside out. The industry calls this oxidative degradation, and it can shorten the lifespan of PEX significantly depending on your local water chemistry. Some regions have chlorine levels well within the safe range for PEX. Others run concentrations that are much higher, especially during summer months when water treatment plants increase chlorine dosing to account for warmer temperatures and higher bacteria risk. If your home sits at the end of a distribution line where water sits longer in the pipes, chlorine levels can spike even further. The degradation process is slow but relentless. The inner wall of the PEX gradually becomes thinner and more brittle. Eventually, tiny cracks form, then pinhole leaks, and in severe cases, the tubing can split open entirely. I have seen systems that were less than 4 years old completely destroyed by aggressive water chemistry. The homeowner had no warning whatsoever until water was pouring through the ceiling. Prevention starts with knowing your water. Contact your local water utility and ask for the most recent water quality report. You are looking for the chlorine and chloramine levels specifically. If your levels are on the higher end, consider installing a whole house water filtration system, or at minimum a carbon filter at the point of entry. This reduces the chemical load before the water ever reaches your PEX lines. Another smart move is to choose PEX tubing that has been independently tested and rated for high chlorine resistance. Look for tubing that has passed the ASTM F2876 standard for chlorine resistance. Not all PEX is created equal, and spending a few extra dollars per foot on a higher rated tubing could be the difference between a system that lasts 5 years and one that lasts 50. Now, if you're finding this video helpful so far, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps this video reach more homeowners like yourself, who would also find this information helpful. All right, let's continue. The fourth reason PEX plumbing fails sooner than it should is kinking and improper support. PEX is a flexible material, and that flexibility is one of its biggest selling points. You can snake it through walls, around corners, and across long runs without needing as many joints as you would with rigid copper or CPVC. But that flexibility comes with a catch. PEX has a minimum bend radius, and if you exceed it, the tubing will kink. Once a kink forms, the damage is done. That section of pipe is permanently weakened. A kink restricts water flow, creates a pressure point, and becomes the most likely spot for a future failure. Think of it like folding a garden hose sharply. That crease never fully recovers, and neither does PEX. The minimum bend radius depends on the size of the tubing. For half-inch PEX, the general rule is a bend radius of at least 8 inches. For 3/4-inch PEX, you are looking at closer to 10 or 12 inches. Trying to make a tight 90-degree turn without a proper support bend is one of the fastest ways to create a kink. I have crawled under houses and found PEX lines wrapped around floor joists like someone was tying a knot. Every single one of those tight bends is a failure waiting to happen. The other half of this problem is improper support. PEX needs to be secured with appropriate hangers or clamps at regular intervals. For horizontal runs, that means a support point roughly every 32 inches. For vertical runs, every 4 to 6 feet. Without those supports, the tubing sags over time, especially when full of hot water. That sagging creates low points where sediment can collect and stress points where the tubing rubs against framing or other surfaces. Over months and years, that friction wears through the outer wall. Prevention here is about patience and proper planning. When you're routing PEX, take the time to plan gentle curves instead of sharp bends. Use 90-degree PEX bend supports at every turn. These are inexpensive plastic or metal guides that hold the tubing in a smooth arc and prevent kinking entirely. Secure your runs with the right type of hanger. Plastic suspension clamps work well, and they prevent the tubing from contacting wood or metal directly. Never use metal straps without a protective liner, because metal on PEX creates abrasion over time. And if you do accidentally kink a section, do not try to straighten it and hope for the best. Cut out the kinked portion and install a new coupling. That small repair now could prevent a major leak later. The fifth and final reason your PEX plumbing could fail is rodent and pest damage. This is the one most homeowners never think about until it is too late. Mice and rats are notorious for chewing through PEX tubing. Unlike copper, which rodents tend to leave alone, PEX is a softer, polymer material that is easy for their teeth to penetrate. And they do not just nibble. They can chew completely through a half-inch PEX line in a single night. The areas where this happens most often are crawl spaces, unfinished basements, attics, and any void space inside walls where rodents travel. These are the same areas where PEX is commonly run because of its flexibility and ease of installation. So the very feature that makes PEX convenient also puts it directly in the path of pests. I once responded to a call where a homeowner had water flooding their crawl space. When I got under the house, I found 4 separate PEX lines with chew marks. 2 of them had been bitten clean through. The repair bill was over $2,000, and that did not include the pest control or the water damage restoration to the subfloor above. What made it worse was that the homeowner had no idea they even had a rodent problem. The mice had been living in the crawl space for months, quietly working on those pipes. Prevention requires a 2-part approach. First, address the pest issue itself. Seal any entry points around your foundation, vents, and the utility penetrations. Mice can squeeze through an opening as small as 1/4 of an inch, so be thorough. Use steel wool combined with expanding foam or metal mesh to close gaps. Set traps or bait stations in crawl spaces and attics as a precaution, even if you have not seen signs of rodents yet. Second, protect the PEX lines themselves. In areas where rodent access is likely, run PEX inside rigid protective sleeves or conduit. 1/2-inch PEX fits nicely inside 3/4-inch rigid PVC sleeve, and 3/4-inch PEX can be run through 1-inch sleeve. This adds a physical barrier that rodents cannot easily chew through. Some homeowners also wrap exposed PEX with rodent-resistant tape or apply deterrent sprays, but physical barriers are always the most reliable long-term solution. Taking these steps now costs very little compared to the damage a single determined mouse can cause in one evening. And now for the bonus tip that professional plumbers swear by. If you really want to protect your PEX system and catch problems before they turn into disasters, install a whole house water leak detection and automatic shutoff valve at your main water line. These devices monitor water flow continuously. If they detect an unusual pattern, like a slow, steady drip that runs for hours or a sudden burst of flow that signals a ruptured line, they automatically shut off the water supply to your entire home. Modern units can even send an alert straight to your phone so you know something is wrong even when you are not home. You can find reliable models in the range of $150 to $300, and most homeowners with basic plumbing skills can install one in under an hour. Think about what this means for your PEX system specifically. If a fitting fails at 2 in the morning, instead of waking up to a flooded kitchen, you wake up to a notification on your phone and a dry floor. If a rodent chews through a line in your crawl space while you are away on vacation, the valve catches it immediately instead of letting water run for days. One small device gives you a safety net for every single failure point we covered today. That is peace of mind you cannot put a price on. Thanks for sticking with me through the entire video. If you found this helpful, give it a like, subscribe for more DIY plumbing tips, and check out our other videos.